of the show, one of the things that has struck me about it is I think you are doing somewhat less comedy about media coverage of things,
Yes.
and more comedy about the underlying thing. Because the first thing I had heard about your show was that you were interested in kind of where news coverage was going in terms of BuzzFeed and stuff like that. But that hasn't really been as much what I've seen. What I've seen is covering the underlying story more.
Yes.
Is that something that you felt like I'm more interested in that than in the kind of going through kind of...
Well, it's about building the relationship first. Let's talk about the thing. It's the same thing I would do in stand-up comedy, the same thing you do in any conversation. I like to get to know people. I like for people to get to know me. And the best way we can do that is talk about the issues themselves first, you know? A lot of people don't realize or forget that John evolved into the man that he was at the end of his tenure. That was 16 years of work that got him to that point. And for you to try and rush that evolution, for you to try and rush that growth, would be robbing myself, the show, and the viewer of an opportunity to build a solid foundation that gets us to where we need to go. So for now, it's my first experience of a Republican debate as a host of The Daily Show.
Right.
It is my first experience of Donald Trump and his hair. It is my first experience of Ben Carson. These are all first experiences for me. So for me to run ahead of myself and carry on the journey per se, that doesn't make sense. I have to start from the beginning and say, this is my first experience. And I was surprised to find that for many people, it is also their first experience. They go, actually, I wasn't watching The Daily Show, or I feel like I caught it in the middle and I could this is a great time to jump in and join the conversation. And people who have been watching go, oh, I never thought of it like that, or that was an interesting take that you had, or that was something that I hadn't previously thought. I never thought that Donald Trump was an African president. So,
That's a great bit.
so those are things.
That's a great bit.
Those are the things that I'm trying to create. When it comes to the media, I think John had that I think right, because he himself had achieved a certain level of journalism integrity himself. Who am I to skewer the media when I don't feel that I have created enough of a solid foundation? You know, I wouldn't do that. So when I've found my footing 100% or as close to it as possible, then I can start looking outwards. But I believe there's so much right now that I don't even need to be skewering media just yet.
Yeah. It seems like in terms of the job that you got when you got this job, Jon Stewart was the host of the show, but was also the boss of the show.
Yes.
What is it like to come in when you've been with the show in a different capacity for a shorter time? There was a fair amount of holdovers on the writing staff and producers at the beginning, correct?
Yes.
How do you come in? Can you be the boss of the show? Do you have to ease your way into being the boss of the show?
You have to be the boss of the show. It's as simple, and it's not even the boss. I really don't like the term boss. People say it, but I think of it like sports. I'm a captain. You know, we're a team. That's really what we are. We're a team. We win, we lose. Yes, the bulk of it will be on my shoulders if we lose, and the praise will also fall on my shoulders. So I understand that, but we're a team, and the team requires all the moving parts to work in unison. You know, so my duty is to make sure that everybody is moving in the right direction, and they're helping me to execute the vision that I think we need to execute. You know, so it's their opinions combined with my vision, and then we try and mold that into getting to the right place. But it really is a team effort. You can't just do it as a boss per se.
Sure.
And that's the one thing that John blessed me with is, A, the ability to be part of the family before he left. So I wasn't a stranger in the room. I already had an office. I had a tiny little office. They had to force me to move into John's office. I was like, I like my office. It's fine.
What was your tiny little office like?
I just had just like a little office with a little brown desk and a window at the top that comes in like a little skylight, which I really liked. And then John's office has a, what do you call that, with the exposed brick?
Oh.
Which I'm not a fan of. I don't. No, it's a strange. You see, like this is one of those strange things culturally. So. I always say, just in terms of culture, exposed brick is a classic example of privilege in my world. Because coming from South Africa, coming from any poor country, to be honest, exposed brick displays that you do not have the ability to plaster your walls and paint them. You don't have enough money to do that. So all we had growing up was exposed brick. And then you move to a place where everyone goes, we have so much plaster and so much paint. In order for me to be different, I'm going to expose the bricks in my walls. And everyone goes, that is so fantastic. I will pay more for that. And so all I see is a reminder of where I came from. And I'm like, we need plaster on those walls, please.
But I think that's a pretty common American affectation, isn't it? Though, like
I don't
people
even think it's American. It's just
But I
it's
mean,
what
like-
comes with. It's what comes with. It really is what comes with. I honestly find, and it's not a bad thing. It's just what comes with privilege is the fascination with the lack thereof. That's what just generally happens. It's the same thing with camping. No one in a third world country goes camping because that's how we live. That's
Right.
not. You know what I mean? This is.
or like peasant food.
Yeah,
things
it's
that-
not
yeah.
it's not something that entices me. Why would I want to go and stay outdoors? I lived outdoors. Why would I want to? This is so all of those things. It's a fascination with the world that you're not privy to because, I guess, of privilege.
Yeah, I was watching you with Jerry Seinfeld on the web series Jerry Seinfeld has, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, in which he gets in a very fancy car with someone in comedy and drive around, talk about various things. And he was talking about this crazy schedule that you were keeping at one time, going back and forth between, I want to say, London?
Yeah, London and New York.
And New York. And he said, where do you think that work ethic comes from? And you said, being poor.
Yes.
And he cracked up laughing. And I thought, it's funny, but at the same time, I wondered if it was weird to be with a guy like that in a car like that, trying to have a conversation about how being poor affects the way that you look at the world.
No, not at all. One of the greatest things I think I was blessed with is, well, two things really. My mom and growing up in the era of Nelson Mandela. Two people that taught me that you do not need, or you shouldn't let the anger around what has happened to you consume you. It doesn't mean you should forget what has happened to you. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try and fix it or correct the errors of the past. But the anger itself will consume you. You know. So if I get angry that I grew up poor and Jerry didn't, I mean, that's not his fault. It's not. You get what I'm saying? This is not you. I find that as people, we tend to live in a place where you can get angry, and that anger then consumes you, and you go, I hate rich people. And it's like, why do you hate them? Because they don't know what it's like to be poor. And it's like, but that's not their fault. Mm-hmm. You know? So you get to a place where you go, oh, it's not angry. This is what shaped me. This is what molded me. I'm blessed enough to be in the place that I am now. I know what it is like to be very, very, very poor. So I don't see it as coming from an angry place. So I get to laugh about these things because I don't think being poor is funny, but there's nothing funny about most things in the world. But even when we were poor as a family, we were able to laugh. So that's one thread that I have that goes through life is laughter, and that's the thing that connects most people. So in that conversation, I can laugh about it because it's something I had never thought of. Is why do you work so hard? Because I'm just